Law enforcement authorities have taken a pause and await the court decision as the trial against the leadership of bus terminal Ushkonir will soon be continued in Karasay Court of Almaty. Several businessmen requested law enforcement agencies to solve the dispute over the facility linked to the president's brother Bulat Nazarbayev.
On Wednesday, the official representative of the Internal Affairs Ministry, Quvonishbek Jumanov, declared that the ministry has no authority to investigate the infamous case of the bus station Ushkonir, linked to the president's brother Bulat Nazarbayev. According to Jumanov, the claims of 67 businessmen have economic base, thus, theoretically, they should be reviewed by the financial police. The law enforcement authorities, however, are still deciding how to solve the problem in practice.
We will find out what to do and give you the answer very soon.
Supervisory authorities of the country are also ignoring the situation. Prosecutor's office of Karasay district has the case in its custody, but it is not in a hurry to review it. Prosecutor Aydos Kulubayev justifies the inaction with the procedural restrictions, as the government body has no right to take any actions during the consideration of the claim by a court.
After the court makes the decision, and if plaintiffs or defendants are dissatisfied with it, we as a supervision authority will examine whether the decision was made legally or not.
The director of bus terminal Ushkonir, Kamal Kurmangaliyev, sold retail spaces to businessmen for the amount of $2.5 million. The deals were to be closed after the station starts operating, but soon the director disappeared and the building reissued to another legal entity, while invested money never returned to entrepreneurs. Now the case is being reviewed by Karasay Court by 2 alternative judges. The 8th hearing will be held this week.
While the case of Ushkonir has 2 judges, the trial of Mukhtar Jakishev might see the addition of 2 new lawyers. On Thursday, the former head of Kazatomprom personally asked the court to grant Danyar Kanafin and Alexander Rosenzweig the right to defend him.
These lawyers were hired by Jakishev's family last summer, but they still cannot participate in the trial. The court explains that these lawyers do not have the right to access state secrets. At the same time, Jakishev noted in his motion that his public defender Bulat Esatayev was not removed from the case, even though his right to access state secret is questionable. The other attorney of Jakishev, Nurlan Beysikeyev, petitioned the court to change the preventive punishment by either withdrawing the arrest altogether or changing the measure to anything else but the imprisonment. All these requests are yet to be addressed by the judge. The decision to extend the detention to 4 months was made by the Elis District Court. However, this case is not in its jurisdiction. In fact, the case is under the jurisdiction of the Sary-Arka District Court.
Meanwhile, Judge Nurjan Joldasbekov, which leads Kazatomprom trial, was listed in the Bulletin of Shame. A blog with this name appeared recently on the internet with a goal to specially expose Kazakh judges who, according to the resource owners, made unfair, politically motivated rulings.
There are a number of judges on the blacklist, including Yerlan Tasirov, who passed a sentence to the former Environment Minister Nurlan Iskakov, as well as Kulan Tolkunov, who sentenced a well-known human rights activist, Yevgeny Zhovtis, to 4 years imprisonment. In total, the blog mentions 5 Kazakh judges.
Leading market players discussed the initiative of Kazakh leadership to double metals output over the next 5 years. Top managers of major companies including ENRC, ArcelorMittal and Essar Steel all took part in the annual CIS Metal Summit. It was revealed there that in many ways expert evaluations do not coincide with fantasies of the country's leadership, although business community does support the trend of increasing the production output.
Several major projects are still frozen, but it is no longer an issue. Participants of the CIS Metal Summit talked about the output expansion across the entire Commonwealth. The leading players of the Kazakh market are getting ready for a new breakthrough after the recent stagnation stage. Businessmen linked the latest statement of the country's leadership. The production of metals will be doubled over the next 5 years, although steel market experts have more modest forecasts.
The question for me would be, how much can it increase within 4 or 5 years? I think if it was to double, that would be quite difficult. But if it is to increase production, to say go from 4 million to 5, 6, 7 million in 5 years, that would be quite possible.
The vice president of the ENRC, Patrice Lulier, is counting on the good appetites of Russia and China, which are the main consumers of the Kazakh metals. The top manager of the Western company, which nearly all of its business concentrated in Kazakhstan, reveals the plans to increase the ferroalloys production by 25% to build a turbine in Aksu. These great plans, though, might be spoiled by a human factor.
I have one major problem, which is finding high-skilled staff, experts and specialists in metallurgy.
Nevertheless, the main issue here is the one common to all the participants, the avoidance of pulling down the prices for metals by increasing the output and supply at the world market. After all, even at present levels, some questionable methods are often used for price management. That is why the recent strike of Sudbury's Kazakh employees actually benefited the producers, as the nickel extraction dropped by 10%, but the price increased. Similar methods of price control were not discussed during the summit's meetings. Instead, companies were busy announcing their most ambitious plans, mostly focusing their attention on China.
It is not at all surprising that in view of these major plans of key corporations, the needs of regular citizens are often forgotten. A small boiler house owned by the industry giant Kazakhmys Corporation broke down in the village Belousovka of East Kazakhstan region. As a result, residents of 28 apartment blocks ended up without heating for almost a week.
The boiler is working very poorly. When we have heating, it only slightly warms up our flats, and in the blink of an eye, it's cold again. Almost 4,000 people freeze in Belousovka village in eastern Kazakhstan. Local boiler broke down and 28 apartment blocks were left without heating. According to local residents, the room temperature barely reaches 5 degrees Celsius. After I drink tea, I leave some in my glass and it freezes. It means the temperature in the flat was about 0. We want heating and uninterrupted electricity supply. The boiler house is owned by the industrial giant Kazakhmys Corporation, which is also responsible for the communications network in the village. Villagers demand to reimburse them for the cost of electricity consumed during the absence of heating since February 12. In their turn, local authorities blame the negligence of one of the workers for the boiler's breakdown.
A faucet was located on the railway carriage. Someone passed it with a razor bucket and broke the high-voltage line. This resulted in an implosion, causing both of our boilers as well as the steam boiler to break down.
Emergency repair works are currently underway. Workers change pipes, insulate basements and heat up the inter-house system, promising to relaunch the main boiler within a day. However, the main problem remains the depreciated networks of the village, say officials.
These were all the latest updates from Kazakhstan. Thank you for being with us and goodbye.